Hello everyone, welcome to the SG Wristwatches channel. Today we'll be comparing 3 watches from the Seiko family with one bonus watch at the end. So the 3 watches are the Seiko 5 SNKL23K1, the Sub 033, and the Grand Seiko SBGR051. They are around the price points of $100, $500 and $5,000 respectively. These 3 watches are very similar in design and all carry out the same Seiko DNA. So what's the reason for the price difference between these 3? Let's find out. But before we dive into the watches, let's take a quick look at the history of Seiko. Seiko is a Japanese company that was founded in 1881. The company has a long history of innovation and is responsible for many industry firsts, such as the quartz watch, the first automatic chronograph, together with 2 other Swiss competitors. They launched it at almost the same time, and the first spring drive movement. Seiko is known for its quality and affordability, with watches that range from entry-level mechanical watches to high-end luxury timepieces. All Seiko components are done in-house. Now let's take a look at the watches themselves. First up is the cheapest, the $100 or around $100 Seiko 5 SNKL23. This watch is part of Seiko's popular Seiko 5 series, which is their entry level, which was introduced in 1963. The Seiko 5 has a case diameter of 38mm, a case thickness of 10.4 mm and 45 mm lug to lug. That's from one end to the other. It has a black dial with applied silver hour markers and hands, and a day-date wheel at 3 o'clock. Notice the pinstripes, those are the vertical lines on the dial itself, and the metal framing around the date wheel. All these are additional touches. So the markers, as you can see, they are made of metal and they've been placed independently, one by one, onto the dial, and that's what we mean by applied markers. So on the dial, covering the dial, we actually have a crystal, and this is made of hard legs, which is Seiko's proprietary mineral crystal. So it's a type of glass, and this watch has a water resistance of 30 meters, and it's powered by a Seiko 5 7S26 movement. So it comes with a bracelet, which I have not attached to the watch because for reasons you'll see soon. So the Seiko 5 comes with this folded link bracelet. It's brand new, I've never used it, and the reason is because, as you can see here, it's actually a folded link. And what I mean by folded link is that each link of the bracelet is actually a piece of metal that you can see. It's actually bent into shape of the links, and all these are connected together. So this isn't one solid piece of metal, it's actually a piece of metal that's been folded. So it's serviceable, it does the job, but it has a kind of light and loose feeling. And you can see these are hollow end links, that means it's just a folded piece of metal. Okay, now we'll take a look at the movement. So this is the 7S26 movement. The 7S26 movement is made by Seiko, and it's pretty basic of all the 3 watches, and it's found in the entry level watches. It has a simple and reliable 21 jewel movement and a power reserve of 40 hours. Oops, looks like it isn't running at the moment. So it runs at a beat rate of 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it's non-hacking. And what do I mean by non-hacking? It actually doesn't, the second hand doesn't stop when I pull it out. You can see it's still running. Oops. Okay. The reason it's not running is because I haven't wound it up. Okay, sorry for that. So yeah, you see the second hand doesn't stop when I pull it out. So that's what I mean by non-hacking movement. You can't control the second hand, and it's non-hand winding. So I can't wind the watch by turning the crown. So the only way that you can wind up a 7S26 movement is by shaking the watch, and people jokingly call it the Seiko shuffle. Alright, now let's move on to the mid-range watch, which is the Sub 033. So this is a watch that's been discontinued, but it's pretty popular on the internet, and you'll see why. So this is considered a step up from the Seiko 5 with a more refined design and higher quality materials. The Sub 033 has a similar 38mm stainless steel case and bracelet, a black dial with silver hour markers and hands, and a date window at 3 o'clock. So at first glance, you can see it bears significant resemblance to the Seiko 5. It has a sapphire crystal. So sapphire crystal is a much harder material than mineral glass, so that provides improved scratch resistance. It also comes with a sign crown. You can see here sign S by Seiko, which is engraved, and it has a higher water resistance than the Seiko 5 at 100 meters. That means you'll be able to swim safely in a pool with it without much issues. So the bracelet of this Sub 033 is actually a solid steel bracelet. What do I mean by that? You can see that it's actually one solid piece of material compared with the Seiko 5 again. You can see all the lines from the folding. So it's a machine out of a solid piece of metal, and it's polished at the sides. This one is just simply brushed. So it looks like a 3-link, but it's actually, if you see on the underside, yep, you can see that, yeah, it's actually made of one solid piece of metal. And here we have solid end links. So you can see this is actually a thick piece of metal compared with the Seiko 5, which is just a piece of metal that's been folded. So that is the difference in the bracelet. And the Sub 033 is powered by the 6R15 movement. And the 6R15 movement is a step up from the 7S26 and is found in mid-range Seiko watches. It has a beat rate of 21,600 vibrations per hour, 3 Hz, which is the same as the Seiko 5, and has additional features like hand winding and hacking. So I'm not sure if you can hear this, but when I turn the crown, you can actually feel resistance, and it's actually winding up the mainspring barrel of the watch. So yeah, at first glance, if you look at the 6R15 movement, it looks kind of similar to the 7S26 because it's based on the same architecture, but it provides additional features. So the power reserve of the 6R15 is 50 hours. It has hacking, which I'll show you. So I pull out the crown, and then the second hand stops, and it has an accuracy of -15 to +25 seconds a day, compared to the Seiko 5, which is +40 to -20 seconds a day, if I recall correctly. So this is the Sub 033. Right. So for both the Seiko 5 and the Sub, you can see that actually there's lume applied on the hands. That's the glow-in-the-dark material. Okay, now let's move on to the Grand Seiko SBGR 051. So first, a bit about background on the Grand Seiko. Grand Seiko was first started in 1960 with the goal of beating the Swiss in terms of quality and accuracy. So in fact, Grand Seiko is a sub-brand of Seiko, which you can see over here, and now Grand Seiko has been spun off into a different entity separate from Seiko. So the newer Grand Seikos, you will not see Seiko on the dial anymore, and Grand Seiko is shifted to the top. So in fact, Grand Seiko actually beat all the Swiss mechanical watches in the accuracy trials just before the trials were discontinued. So that gives you a little bit background on what Grand Seiko is and what it stands for. So this SBGR 051, which has been discontinued, comes in a 37mm case, so pretty close to the sub and the Seiko 5. It's 13.3mm thick and 44mm lug to lug, which in short, it's pretty similar dimensions to all between all these three watches. The only thing would be that the thickness at 30mm is slightly thick. It would be about maybe 1mm thicker than, you can see it's slightly thicker than the Seiko 5. So the case, the hands, and the markers are made by Grand Seiko through this technique called using a European solids polishing machine, and it's called Zaratsu polish, and it's done by hand to a high degree of accuracy. So I believe the case and the hands, and they are all done first by machines, and subsequently they are polished by hand. So this gives you a very high quality of finish. On this watch itself, you can see it's pretty old watch, pretty beat up. So the case is probably not as good as it used to be. But on the hands and the markers, you can see that. Oops, let's get it. Yeah, it's super polished. It's super shiny. The markers are super sharp. You can put it side by side with the sub, and you can see that the sub is just a rather 2D piece of metal, the markers, compared with Grand Seiko, which are 3D blocks of metal, which are chamfered and polished on each side. You can even see on the hands, rather than just being a flat piece of metal, the edges of the hands are actually chamfered, so they're polished on each side. Well, for the Seiko 5, it's it's well done, but it's still very 2D. But the trade-off for this particular Seiko 5 is that there's no lume on the dial. But with that kind of reflectivity, even in low light situations, the hands are still pretty legible. So moving on to the crystal, it comes with a sapphire crystal, as you would expect from a high quality watch, and it's slightly domed. For the sub, it's actually a flat piece of sapphire crystal. This one is slightly domed, and it has anti-reflective coating, which makes it easier to read in bright light. It also has a higher water resistance of 100 meters, similar to the sub, and it has a 3-link bracelet. So you can see this bracelet over here. From the underside, you can actually tell that each link is made of 3 separate pieces of metal, and of course you get a solid end link, one solid piece of metal. So inside, the Grand Seiko beats the heart of the watch, and also one of the reasons for its higher price, which is the 9S65 movement. It's the most advanced out of the 3 watches. So it beats at a frequency of 28,800 vibrations per hour, which is 4 Hz compared to the 3 Hz of the 2 earlier watches, and has a power reserve of 72 hours, which is higher than the other 2 as well. It's also more accurate than the 6R15 and the 7S26, with a rating of -3 to +5 seconds a day, which is better than the Swiss chronometer specifications of -4 + 6 seconds a day. So this watch is adjusted in 6 positions. So what happens is that when you wear a watch in multiple positions, it actually affects the accuracy of the watch. And a good watchmaker has to account for the different positions to make sure that the watch doesn't go is accurate in one position but inaccurate in others. So this watch is adjusted in 6 positions and 2 temperatures. It makes use of micro manufacturing capabilities to make lighter and more accurate parts. For example, the pallet fork and the escape wheel are lighter due to skeletonization using these advanced micro manufacturing capabilities, and that helps to account for its longer power reserve. According to the Grand Seiko website, each gear tooth is also individually polished, and overall the movement you can see is much more finely finished and decorated compared to the Seiko. You can see the parts are pretty rough in there and much higher level of attention given to the movement. So each watch goes through a 17-day trial before being assembled, and it comes with a certificate of accuracy. So now that we are done with the 3 watches, I actually have a bonus watch. So over here you can see from my earlier videos is a Japanese domestic model Citizen Silver Leaf NB1060, which costs about $1,000. It's 38mm in diameter, so pretty similar dimensions, 12.3mm thick, and 46mm lug to lug, so it's slightly longer. It's made of stainless steel with a Duratec hard coating. That means the case material is actually harder than what you get on a regular steel watch, and that includes the Grand Seiko, which does not come with any special hardening. So it comes with a dome sapphire crystal. You can see over here it's heavily domed, and it has really nice hands and hour markers. So the hands, if you can see, are nicely polished on one side and grain on the other. So yeah, that gives it a really nice contrast and makes it very visible in different lighting conditions. And of course, the style of the show is, you can see that iridescent green made by Citizen, which is some kind of silver leaf, silver foil being applied to the dial. And how it's done exactly, it's not very clear because it was pretty hard to find any translations from the Japanese websites. Yep. So inside the watch beats its heart, which is a Citizen in-house caliber 9011. It's an automatic movement with a nice decoration, not as good as the Grand Seikos, but definitely a step up above those of the Seikos. And it comes with an open work roller, and it beats at 4 Hz, which is 28,800 vibrations per hour, which is similar to the Grand Seiko and higher than the 3 Hz of the other 2 Seikos. And it comes with a 42-hour power reserve. So the functions include hacking and hand winding, so you can wind it by hand as well as stop the seconds. And the accuracy is stated as -10 to +20 seconds a day. So there you have it. We have three Seikos at different price points with different levels of quality and accuracy, and you can see where the money goes into each of these watches at their own price point. All of them are really good. So Seiko 5 is affordable for everyday wear. The Sub 033 is a mid-tier, and the Grand Seiko is the best when you want no compromises in quality and accuracy. For me though, I think the best value for money would be this Citizen. In terms of accuracy, not in terms of accuracy, in terms of quality of the hands and the dial, and the markers, I think it comes pretty close. I think it's better than the sub, quite a bit better than the sub, and not too far off from the Grand Seiko. And the price point at $1,000 is still quite a bit cheaper than the Grand Seiko. So I think the best value for money Seiko you can get would be this Citizen right here. So on that note, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like this content, you can follow me on the SG Wristwatcher Instagram. Thank you.